Hey guys, it's Katie, and today we're going to be doing a buy-in review on the palette Glamorous by LA Colors Eyeshadow Nude. I always want to say LA Girls for some reason. I think it's because I hear it all the time on YouTube. But anyway, so how this is going to work is I'm going to be doing things on packaging, the product, and then the pros and cons of the packaging and product. So let's get started, and there you go. Guys, is the palette itself. It's really self-explanatory, pretty cheap looking, but let's get started on the buy and review. See me looking over to my left. That's because my screen is on and I'm kind of trying to read off what I had written down. So some of the problems with this packaging is that it looks like a child's palette. And I mean that in like, not really like a bad way, but not really in a good way. You can definitely tell it's a very cheap made package, but it's also a very sturdy palette. So I really like the fact that it's, cheap, but it's not too cheap. And they really did work really hard on the product itself, which we'll get into in a little bit. It's very simple, but yet very eye-catching. So if you guys really look at the palette itself, it might be very simple, but it kind of shines when it comes to the, even though, the front part, I'll just show you guys that. If you guys really look, it might be really, really, cheap looking, but it really shines because it shines through to the palette itself. And I think, and yes, I did dig my finger into the one palette, I'm so sad about that. But I think it really brings out the colors and makes you, really look at it and be like, wow, that's a palette I really like. It's cheap, but not too cheap. So it still feels really, it feels really cheap. It's not like my e.l.f. palette that's extremely heavy and feels really good. But it's not too cheap because it doesn't really look like those, plastic palettes you can get from, the dollar store for your kids. It still is a good weight, and I don't feel like it's going to break if I dropped it. Or, say I'm, traveling. I don't feel like it's going to break when I'm traveling. And it's very light, so it's extremely lightweight, and I love that because especially when you're traveling, you don't want to carry a bunch of heavy makeup in your suitcase because it's kind of pointless to have a bunch of makeup if you're not going to use it. And it's very small and compact. It's perfect for traveling. So it's a very tiny palette. My e.l.f. palette is about probably that long, and this one is very small and compact, and it has 12 shades. So, I mean, that's pretty good, and for $1.25, I mean, you can't go wrong. It's a very buttery product. I love that because with all eyeshadows, I find that for me personally, if I don't have a lot of, if it's not buttery enough, then it won't adhere to my eyes as well. And I don't really use a, eye primer. I usually, if you guys have watched my makeup tutorials, I usually sometimes just use concealer. Sometimes I don't use concealer at all. So I find that having a buttery product really does help to adhere to my eyes. They're very soft to the touch. I love the fact that even if you pick up with your fingers, they're very soft and they're just feeling really creamy and really nice and kind of high end, but they're not, which is awesome. It swatches well. It does really swatch well. If you're swatching on your hand, it does look a bit chalky, which I'm not a big fan of, but I really like the fact that they swatch really well, they shine, and they look really pretty. And the small pan sizes is something I don't actually mind because the fact that there is 12 shades and it is much smaller and compact. You don't really need a lot with this product, so I really like the fact that they're very tiny and kind of just delicate and perfect because, like I said before, it's something that I definitely will be traveling with and keeping with me. So some of the pros are they're light in pigment. So some of them, when you guys do see the swatches, you will realize some of them are very light in pigment. I don't really mind that because the fact that, like, I don't really, like, sometimes I don't want, like, a dark, dark, smoky eye. And, like, in one of the pictures I have, which I'll try to put in the end of the video, of some of the looks I did with this palette, it's not too dark, which I like. I like that the fact that the black isn't really, really dark, dark. And, like, some of the shades aren't super dark because sometimes you don't really want that. They have a nice arrangement of colors. So, like I said, when I showed you guys the palette, they have, like, a nice, like, arrangement of, like, nude shades, light shades, and kind of, like, everyone can wear this palette. So, like, for me, these shades are all perfect. And the nice thing I also like is it doesn't have a lot of fallout. That is wonderful because if you guys ever do your makeup and you're, like, doing your eyes last, like, you don't do your eyes first, a lot of times you get, like, fallout right here. With this palette, I don't find that I had a lot of, like, glitter fallout or like shade fallout. It really just stayed on the lid and on the palette, on the brush itself, which came with this one. Has a lot of beautiful inner corner highlight shades. So what I really like is, like, for me personally, I can really use this white shade to highlight my inner corner and it shines. I think for someone with, like, more of, like, an olive or, like, a darker skin tone, I think this shade or, like, this shade would be really pretty as an inner corner highlight, or any of these shades really. For me, I really like the white shade or, like, this really, really pretty pink or this one here because they're very, like, they're not too pigmented. The white, I have to say, is extremely pigmented, but they're not, like, overly pigmented to the point that it's just, like, overpowering the whole look. And the last thing is they all are long lasting. I wore a couple of my looks that I did 2 looks with this palette, one light and one dark. And I wore them for 6 to 7 hours, and it was cold out, I was rubbing my eyes, and they did not move. I really like the fact that they're long-lasting, and for $1.25 in Canada, that's not bad at all. So, I mean, if you guys can get your hands on this, I would definitely suggest buying it, especially for someone with, like, very oily eyelids or that high-end makeup doesn't really last on you. I would definitely check that out. They're all shimmer shades and there's no matte shades. That is a kind of problem for some people that don't like just all matte shades. Like, or like, just like, you know, some matte and some shimmer. Like, if you're not a big fan of all shimmer shades, then this palette might not be a good thing for you. But if you like it, if you do like shimmer shades and you do really want, like, a nice inner corner highlight, this is really good. And also, like, you can also just bring an extra palette with you that's all matte and kind of pair it with this one. That's something I should have put in my pros. It does pair well with other palettes because I did try it with my e.l.f. palette and it does pair well. Hard to pick up with regular brushes. Had to use a sponge tip applicator to get much pigment. So if you're going to be using a regular makeup brush, I would definitely say it might not be the best thing. I tried it and it just did not pick up. I definitely had to use a sponge tip applicator, as you guys can see. Or you can always buy they have some at the dollar store that are the LA Colors sponge tip applicators, and I found that they worked really well. Or even just using your finger works really well as well. But they don't really pick up on brushes all that well, but they do blend well with brushes, I did find. They had a baby powder scent, but you won't smell it unless you actually, like, your nose is right up to the palette. So, like, if you open the palette and you're looking at it, you don't smell it, but if you put your nose, like, right up to it and smell it, then yes, you will have, like, that kind of, like, baby powder kind of smell, which isn't much really pleasant, but yeah. And the other one is some darker shades are more glitterier than other pigments. So some of the darker shades do have a lot more of, like, the glitter in it than it does have pigment, but I don't really mind that because it just makes it more of a lighter pigment, which I like. I'm not a big fan of, like, dark smoky eyes, like the gothic dark eyes. I'm not a big fan of it on myself. On other people it looks really nice, but for me it just does not look good at all. I don't know if it's the hair color or what it is, it just does not look good. So let's get on to the swatches. And there go! Swatchy time! Yes! Sorry if I rambled on a lot. I didn't mean to, but I'm going to swatch the palettes. I'm going to swatch the top row first. So going with this kind of, like, grayish black shade, or I think, no, this is the gray shade. So that's on my finger and this is on my hand. So as you guys can see, it's got like a purpley, like gray tone to it. And it's very shimmery. It's very, very pretty, actually. I really like that. Next is kind of like this grayish black shade. And this one is very, like I said, they're very chalky. Oh crap, I dropped it. It's not a video until I drop something, right? Right. So this one, again, is very chalky, but I also really like it. It's kind of like more like a purpley black than it is real black, but I love that. The next is like this periwinkle blue. I love that shade. It's like a bright blue. Holy moly. There we go. So this is the periwinkle purple blue, and it's so pretty. They're very light shades, and they're not too dark either. And I think they really did a great job on the palette itself. The next one is this like purpley gray shade. And it's just on my thumb because I had nowhere else to swatch. So it's kind of like a darker purple gray, and I really like it too. And the next one is this row, and it's this white shade. This one is blinding. I mean, it'd be a really great shade for like highlighting on the nose if you're like into like that really blinding highlight. It's very frosty, so that is the white shade. It's very, very frosty, very pretty, and again, super light. They work really well, and I love them. Oh crap, I dug my finger into this one too. Okay, whatever. The next ones are these brown shades. So this one I'm going to swatch on my right hand, I should say. I cannot speak. So it's kind of like this golden, kind of like rosy color. So that is that. It's kind of like a, what do you want to call it? I know it too. Rose gold. So it's kind of like more of like a rose gold, pinky shade. I love it. The next one is this brown one, which I really haven't played a lot with because I've been kind of intimidated by it. But it's kind of a bit darker than the rose gold, but it's more of like a brown shade, which I think would be really, really pretty on like someone that has darker skin tone than I do, or like really nice like dark brown eyes, and like maybe like black hair, brown hair, I think would look really nice on. The next one is like this pinky shade on the bottom here. And again, like I said, I'll show you guys, it does have like a chalk and it does kind of pick up a lot of pigment, but they're really pretty. This one I like to call kind of like the Cheshire Cat pink. It's really pretty. It's like a pinky purple. This one doesn't really all that well swatch unless you do like 2 rows, but I mean, that's okay. It's a really pretty color, especially for the whole lid. If you're going to do like an all matte, do the whole lid in that. It's really, really pretty that way. The next one is this light brown right here. And I love this one too. It's really pretty. This one's kind of like a tan shade. So there's that. It's kind of like a tan, I want to say like Cleopatra color. Really, really pretty. Super nice and light. And again, these are really buttery. This next one is kind of more of a brown shade as well. Less of a brown than the last one, but definitely really pretty. And the last 2 are kind of just these darker, like this one is really dark, but it's not too dark. Like it's dark enough, but it's not dark. That's going to be really hard to pick up. I've been really intimidated by that one as well, because it is so dark and I have very light skin right now. And the last one's kind of like this light brown shade. So these are the palette shades. I'll just put them up side by side right here. So this is all the shades in the palette. I really like these blue tones because with my eye color, the blue purple tones are very pretty on me. And I really like the brown nude shades as well because I just find that these shades work really well for me. And I hope you guys give these a shot because I really like them. Like, for being so cheap, really, like, can you really go wrong for like a cheap palette? Not really. Anyway, so I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! So I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Do, 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 do.